You probably already heard that last week the monsters crushing anti-establishment and anti-corporate voices took some steroid injections. 800 pages were banned from Facebook last week without so much as a warning. But if you're the mainstream media, then you would say these were 800 spam accounts. These were not real pages. But the truth is, of those 800, many were legitimate journalistic enterprises like Anti-Media, Free Thought Project, Police the Police, and Cop Block. Other pages were just heavily restricted. For example, the anti-censorship social media platform Minds.com can no longer be shared on Facebook. And if you're even thinking about Minds, Facebook will fill your timeline with photos of your ex's wedding. It's awful. This is a full frontal crushing of dissident voices. Let's find out what's going on and let's get it directly from the sources. Anti-Media's Twitter account said, quote, oh, sorry, suspended. That's weird. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go to Free Thought Project's Twitter account. They said, quote, okay, that's weird. That's weird. Okay, well, let's sorry about that. Let's go to editor-in-chief of Anti-Media, Carrie Wedler. She's a great writer. She's done some really important work. Anyway, as she boldly stated on her Twitter account, what in God's name is going on? Oh, I get it. I was going crazy with some sort of conspiracy theory, but this is not a theory. It's just a conspiracy. Facebook conspired with Twitter to shut down a large swath of alternative and independent media on the same day.
The government tells Facebook what to do a lot of times, right? And so they bow to the government all the time because they don't want to be regulated.
Right.
This is, Matt Taibbi wrote an article on the 2nd, August 2nd about this, and there's been a lot of people being deplatformed from Facebook that you don't know about.
Like who?
Like this isn't like, so here's what they shut down lots of other sites at the behest of the government in Israel, like the Atlantic Council. So pages like Black Elevation, they got shut down. A page called Mindful Being, they got shut down. Facebook also wiped out No Unite the Right To, which is a page appearing to advertise a counter rally on the upcoming anniversary of the violence in Charlottesville. So they shut that down too. Matt Taibbi, let me just give you a quick quote from his article. He says, Facebook was helped in its efforts to wipe out these dangerous memes by the Atlantic Council, on whose board you'll find confidence-inspiring names like Henry Kissinger, CIA Chief Michael Hayden, former acting CIA head Michael Morrell, and former Bush-era Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff. These people now have their hands on what is essentially a direct lever over nationwide news distribution. It's hard to overstate the potential mischief that lurks behind this union of internet platforms and would-be government censors.
Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes says the company should be broken up immediately. In a New York Times opinion piece out today, Hughes says CEO Mark Zuckerberg has unchecked powers and more influence than the government itself.
But Hughes warns breaking up Facebook isn't enough. He's calling for Congress to get involved in the way social media companies do business as soon as possible.
What stood out to you?
What's fascinating is that this is a Facebook co-founder and a close friend of Mark Zuckerberg. And the first paragraph of the story, Hughes recounts a good, pleasant meeting with Zuckerberg recently, and then he lays into him and says, look, the company is too powerful, and Zuckerberg is too powerful for his own good or for their own good. That's what really stuck out to me. Look, if you are kind of following this Facebook story as it has evolved, and there have been many dramatic twists and turns over the last year and a half or so, the one thing you really need to pay attention to here is that Facebook controls or has about a 70% share of the market in the U.S. If you were to take that in terms of communications applications, if you were to apply that same reasoning to a telephone company or to any other communications platform, Hughes reasons that, hey, look, you would have to break this up simply because we have a long tradition of not supporting monopolies or breaking up monopoly.
Roosevelt did not waste much time going after what he thought was America's greatest evil: too much power in the hands of corporate America.
When Roosevelt becomes president, it was a toss-up
who the most powerful man in the country was. It might have been Theodore Roosevelt, the President of the United States, or it might have been J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier in the country.
Roosevelt came to believe that the great industrialists in the United States did, in fact, wield too much power, and he decided that this should be curbed.
5 months into office, Roosevelt took J.P. Morgan head-on. He sued the tycoon's Northern Securities Corporation to halt its monopolization of the Western railways. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and in a close decision, the government was successful. Morgan's monopoly was crushed.
Michael Copps, is this a crazy legal theory, Title II?
No, you know, I think the big ISPs have got their smog machines out to try to befuddle and confuse the media and the people and everybody else. Let's start with the very basics. We don't have a lot of time here. The question at issue today is whether an agency in Washington, D.C. is going to have the authority, as it has had since the 1920s over telecommunications, to make sure that there's no discriminatory actions by the providers, to make sure now in terms of the internet that a favored few aren't going to be able to throttle content or block content or prioritize content or determine what news you and I are going to get. The FCC has had this authority. The question now before it is going to reassert this authority for the communications infrastructure of the 21st century that it did for the 20th century. It's not rocket science.
His underlying view was that large size in industry is something that comes with the territory of the Industrial Revolution. We can't turn back the clock on that. However, we have to remind these corporate barons that the people, not the trusts, not the capitalist system, but the people control affairs in this country.
While it's true Facebook has 70% market share in social media, and that would subject it to monopoly regulation under Teddy Roosevelt's standard from the 1906 Antitrust Act, there's a second reason why Facebook, YouTube, Google might all be regulated as monopolies. The idea in economics is called network externalities. Network externalities occur when the value of a product to one user depends upon how many other users are using the product. And in the case of YouTube and Facebook, the value of YouTube and Facebook goes up the more people who use the product, because it means the more people who will see your Facebook page, your Facebook post, or your YouTube video.
Now for reaction by Skype are the aforementioned Diamond and Silk. It's great to see you, ladies. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing wonderful. We hope you're doing well.
Yes, nice to see you back.
Nice to see you. All right, let's start with you, Diamond. Facebook and Diamond and Silk. You guys have had an interesting relationship over the past several weeks or even months, given the fact that you discovered that your messages were suddenly not getting out to your followers.
We know that some say this is about politics, but I come to clarify that this is not about politics. This is about common sense. That's right. And we have Donald J. Trump standing up for our veterans and our wounded warriors.
Yes. And I know Facebook has had a response to this, but first just tell us what happened and how you noticed it.
Well, back in September of 2017, we noticed one day that all of our engagement had stopped. So we reached out to Facebook continuously, and they kept giving us the runaround. Nothing is wrong with your page. There's nothing wrong with it. Well, we don't know, and we got to reach back out to our team. It was just a back and forth. And then finally, the straw was the other day when they wrote and they said that they deem our content and our brand unsafe to the community.
That's the thing, right? It's like are you responsible for the people who also comment on your post? And this is where we're getting to this like Vox thing that's happening with Steven Crowder right now.
Right.
Are you responsible for the reaction to what you post? Because if you look at what Steven Crowder said to that, for people who don't know the story, Steven Crowder got into it with this guy who is a writer for Vox, who he's gay. His Twitter handle is gay wonk. Right?
Carlos Maza.
Yeah, so it's not that he's hiding that he's gay. Talks about it all the time. He's kind of effeminate. And Steven Crowder mocked that. And he mocked that in these videos where he was criticizing Carlos's position on Antifa.
He says, so I have pretty thick skin when it comes to online harassment, but something has been really bothering me. And he says, since I started working at Vox, Steven Crowder has been making video after video debunking strike-through. Every single video has included repeated overt attacks on my sexual orientation and ethnicity, and here's a sample. And he says, I've been called... So it is not nice that he calls them a listener, but I think anybody who calls a gay person a listener already outed themselves out to be a moron, right? Like, why would you care what a guy who would say that says? Who cares if that guy's... Anybody who watches Steven Crowder is also a moron. There's assholes in the way. Hey, the guy from the KKK called me a name. Who cares? I don't give a... That guy's in the KKK. People come after me all the time. There are channels on YouTube dedicated just to making videos attacking me. There's like at least 3. Crowder is, and ask my siblings not to respond. It's exhausting. Why do you have to... I don't watch the videos people make of me. People make videos, at least one a day. Somebody makes a video attacking me. I don't watch them. Conservatives on YouTube disagree with me. Apparently, you do. But by refusing to enforce its anti-harassment policy, YouTube is helping incredibly powerful cyberbullies organize and target people they disagree with. So what is this thing called cyberbullying? It's just... People are dicks. It happens all the time. People are dicks to me. Are people dicks to you? I'm gonna guess all the time people are dicks to you. Powerful people, right?
I've been on the opposite end of Steven Crowder's rage, and it's definitely not fun. So I don't know if his videos validate or fit in the category of the harassment or bullying, but that's not what this is about, because the establishment media will win in the end, because they're gonna go after the independent content creators.
That's
like
exactly what's happening. So this is a guy from Vox.
Not Steven Crowder. They already remonetized him. Yeah. It's insane.
So let me show you a little bit more. He says harassment isn't siloed either. Every time he makes one of these videos, his fans flood the comments on the original Fox video. So a piece I spent 4 weeks working on is drowning in homophobic and abusive comments and downvotes. Other Vox fans see it, and it's humiliating. Why would it be humiliating? So first of all, you can turn off the comments on your YouTube video. So that problem's solved right there. Now you're upset because people downvote your videos? That seems a little... People downvote your videos who are assholes. First of all, if they're coming to your video to downvote it, that's helping your video. You're getting more views and you're getting more money for it. That's a plus. That's a win. So when someone highlights you, that's good, even though they're an asshole. So this idea that he's being humiliated because some comedian does a video about him and people downvote his video and he feels humiliated? That's ridiculous. That's like how the KKK did another video about me. I'm so humiliated. Why would you let them have that power to humiliate you? That's to teach a child, right? Now, I'm not making light of people being homophobic. That's bad. That's a horrible thing. But that guy... Giving Steven Crowder the power to humiliate you with downvotes seems a little ridiculous and self-defeating, right? Okay. He says, I cannot explain how awful it is to see a video where you're called the list past 1 million views, thousands of comments piling on how the LGBT people expected to produce interesting content in this environment. That is horrible. You don't watch the video. Don't watch. People make videos, again, people make videos about me. Okay, I don't watch them. They can't bother you if you don't watch them. Okay.
You should watch them.
I'm not. I don't watch them.
They're about you.
I know. Here's what YouTube did. YouTube said Update on our continued review. We have suspended this channel's monetization. So they demonetize Crowder. That's fine, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you don't have a right to make money off of homophobic. So they demonetize them. But it's a guy from Vox doing videos. So he's from a mainstream news organization that wants to shut down YouTube anyway because they'll get the advertising revenue. YouTube is cutting into their advertising revenue heavy, which is why CNN does all that bullshit articles on YouTubers, and Washington Post backs them up, and so does the Wall Street Journal. Okay, so demonetizing doesn't work. They demonetize him. He's still not happy. He goes, demonetizing doesn't work. Abusers use it as proof they're being discriminated against. Then they make millions off of selling merch, doing speaking gigs, and getting their followers to support them on Patreon. The ad revenue isn't the problem, it's the platform.
Teddy Roosevelt 2019 is a little conflicted over this issue. I watched the Steven Crowder videos about Carlos Maza, and they're ridiculous. It's homophobic garbage that no one should laugh at or even have ever put on their YouTube channel. So Steven Crowder here is wrong. But also Teddy Roosevelt 2019 realizes that we live in a Western European civilization. And one of the bedrocks of the United States is freedom of speech. And the famous French philosopher Voltaire said, "Hey, I might disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to my death your right to say it."
In France, several great Enlightenment philosophers wrote passionately about human rights and democracy as well. French philosopher Voltaire, for example, championed the idea of freedom of speech with his famous statement, "I disapprove of what you say, but will defend to the death your right to say it."
One disturbing aspect of this whole situation with the Vox reporter is he's a reporter. Freedom of the press and freedom of the speech is a liberal value. And Carlos is upset that a conservative idiot named Steven Crowder is making fun of him. Did this Carlos Maza guy forget the most fundamental lesson from Voltaire and the Enlightenment? That, hey, people have a right to say things you disagree with. And that's okay. Because if their ideas have merit, they'll be valued and those ideas will be shared. And if their ideas are idiotic and have no merit, they'll be ignored. You shouldn't be afraid in Western civilization of people saying things you disagree with. And up until the Trump presidency, most people on the right and left basically agreed with these ideas. A weird switch has happened in the last 2.5 years in this country. And I kind of wish we went back to Voltaire's worldview.
That's a little chilling. That means like, hey, we'll get rid of this platform or clamp down heavy. That's what it sounds like to me. Does that sound like that to you?
It's dangerous because like all of us have had videos demonetized. Anytime I've ever done a video about any war, it's demonetized by YouTube. And that sometimes they've let them sneak back in, but a lot of times they get demonetized. So this is while again, Steven Crowder's, and I don't respect anything that he's doing, this is like, you're, again, as Abby said, you're opening the door to the ruling class to clamp down and make the real decisions here, which is anybody
gets out of the narrative that they've set. The liberal class sets the parameters for the debate, and if you go outside that, then they'll shut you down. That's exactly.
Because this is not about homophobic bullying. I mean, that I completely agree with what this guy's saying, but that's not what YouTube is giving itself the ability to shut down.
Right. It's going to shut down anything they feel.
Right, and they've already done that.
Right. That's exactly.
Because of this.
So here's one more tweet by him. He says, if you put YouTube's alt-right creators in their own vertical, I don't know what that means, it'd be one of the most popular on YouTube, rivaling music and gaming. YouTube isn't a platform being hijacked by monsters. YouTube is a platform for monsters. That's not good. So I understand that you've been bullied or whatever. Don't watch the videos, turn off the comments on your own videos, and now all you have to worry about is downvotes. That's it. And now someone doxed you, I get that, but that has nothing to do with YouTube. Steven Crowder didn't dox you on his show. Someone else did that behind the scenes, somebody who doesn't. So anyway.
And they've conflated you with ISIS, white supremacists, pedophilia. I mean, that's how scary this gets.
Yeah, so what they do now, if they want to shut up an anti-war voice like mine, is they put me in an article in the Washington Post or CNN that says I'm in there with Nazis and pedophiles and the KKK. They did that to me. That's not some whole comedian doing that to me. That's the goddamn CNN, the most trusted name in news. They did that to me. Did I say they should be taken down and we should get rid of their YouTube channel and they shouldn't have the right of no, that's part of being grown up with a free speech society. You don't have a right. Yeah. Everybody gets picked on who's a public person. Everybody does. Everybody gets made fun of. They try to take my livelihood away by discrediting me. That's people with power do that. Not some right-wing comedian who nobody pays attention to. All right. So that's not good, all right? And again, we're all against homophobia. We're all against racism. The way to fight that isn't through censorship and taking away YouTube. That's not how you fight it. Right? So right now, Steven Crowder is more popular than he's ever been because of this right now. And now he's gonna raise millions of dollars off of being deplatformed from YouTube. What you're doing is helping him. Like, this isn't obvious, but what I think it might be more nefarious because people like Vox, CNN, Washington Post, they want to take down YouTube's advertising on their news shows. That's really what this is. Okay. Here's the Washington Post. A right-wing YouTuber hurled racist, homophobic taunts at a gay reporter. The company did nothing. That's the headline in the Washington Post. So now you're like, that too, right? So what this does is it makes people more willing to passively accept censorship. That's what this does. And Carlos Maza, someone should tell him. Okay. In fact, he's not against harassing people who disagree with politically, because here he is. He's saying milkshake them all, humiliate them at every turn, make them dread public organizing. He's talking about people who are throwing milkshakes on right-wing politicians in Europe, and they're starting to do it here now. They've been doing it a lot in England, right? They walk up to a politician and on him, and he's saying humiliate them.
I don't know why. Take your weight. Get back to the car. Back to the car. Get back to the car.
Make them afraid, make them dread public organizing. He's doing the exact thing he's pretending, or he's saying that people shouldn't do to him. That's even worse. That's actual physical violence. He's instigating and endorsing physical violence.
I'm filming you. Oh, I'm gonna hurt you. Because you have a mask on. Oh, shit. He's bleeding. Yo. Hey, man. He's bleeding. Hard.
Because you don't agree with someone's politics. And now he's crying victim. And now he wants to shut down YouTube. He cleared a bomb on YouTube. All last week, Vox backed him up. So did the Washington Post and half on YouTube. And now we're in the middle of an adpocalypse again. Because guess what? Within minutes of YouTube's announcements of a new purge, it appears they caught my outlet, which documents activism and extremism, in the crossfire. I was just notified my entire channel has been demonetized. I am a journalist whose work there is used in dozens of documentaries. It's already started. That's a real journalist. And there's another guy who's a history professor who has a channel about history, and they took his down because he talks about Nazis. Yeah, he talks about them in a historical perspective. So do you see the unintended consequences? Censorship has way more victims than you ever think. And that's the worst way to fight against racism and homophobia, is through censorship. What does it do? It makes those people martyrs. It makes them stronger. It gets them more attention, and it makes you look like a snowflake who wants to be a fascist and censor people, because that's what that is. You want to censor people. That's fucking horrible. Especially today, when 5 companies now own every goddamn TV station, radio station, newspaper, and magazine. 5 goddamn companies own it all. It's more important to have YouTube and freedom of speech now than ever before.
Jimmy, why do we only have 5 companies?
Because of Bill Clinton's 1996 Telecommunications Act.
So sometimes I go back and forth with this assertion that Facebook is this powerful. And he says, you know, Zuckerberg is more influential than government. And I kind of think, I know Facebook is large, but when you talk about 70%, you know, portion of the, how did you phrase it?
Let's say the communications or the application-based communications market.
So that's like a market within a market within a market,
Yeah.
right? And I know plenty of people who aren't on Facebook. Is Zuckerberg really that influential?
Where they talked a lot about the important role of network externalities. So let's define it first. They said when the value of a product to one user depends on how many other users there are, economists say that this product inhibits network externalities or network effects. Usually these network externalities or network effects are negative. That means that the value of a product decreases with the number of people using it. So for example, you have an apple and you have to share the apple. Less apple is left for everybody involved. Then you have 3 people or 4 people trying to have a bite of the apple. There's even less apple left over for everybody. So the value of the product decreases with the number of people that use it. So these are negative network externalities. Now, information networks exhibit positive network externalities. That means that the value of the product increases the more people use it. Now, this is something very difficult to wrap your mind around if you're a traditional economist, because usually economics are governed by the law of scarcity. More people, less left over, negative network externalities. So how can you think about that? So, for example, think about Mr. Bell when he had the first telephone. Did it have a lot of value for him? Well, not really, because there was nobody he could call, right? Now, Mr. Watson, his assistant, had the second telephone, and there they already could make 2 phone calls, this phone to this phone, and this phone to this phone. So that was valuable. Then came the third telephone. Now they could already make 6 phone calls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when the 4th telephone was connected to this network, how many phone calls were possible? 12 phone calls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And when the 5th phone was connected, how many phone calls were possible? 20 phone calls. That means the number of possibility increased much faster than the number of nodes, number of people in the network. And that gives a lot of value for everybody in the network. The formal formula goes like this. So you have the number of nodes, x, and the number of degrees, the number of possible phone calls, grows with x squared minus x. The minus x is because it doesn't create a lot of value to call yourself. That's the formula. So it grows in an exponential logic.
I think what Hughes is saying is twofold. One is that our elected representatives may be our elected representatives, but they certainly don't have the sophistication to regulate a company like Facebook. And 2, that Facebook has done a pretty good job of obscuring their other applications. So I don't know that this is like, you are more powerful than the president, but what he is saying is that, look, our government isn't doing what they should be doing, which is checking and balancing large corporations, or what Hughes calls mega corporations, and that Facebook itself owns so much of the market that it's really hard to tell the difference between a Facebook app and their competition.
You know, we were talking about Alex Jones.
Oh,
and
okay.
how
So he's
Alex
being
was,
deplatformed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like across the board, like it's almost. They waited for Apple, it seems like. And when Apple pulled them from iTunes, then, you know, YouTube had danced with it, right? They'd given them some strikes. It was really recently, like within the last couple of months.
Facebook, too.
Yeah, Facebook had given them some strikes, and YouTube gave them some strikes, and people are like, hey, you know, there was some, I felt like almost like unfounded speculation that they would remove him from the platform. I'm like, they're never going to remove him. That's crazy. That's too far. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody in one fell swoop. Spotify remove him? They were going to.
His show became instantly way more popular.
Oh, I'm sure.
So again, the unintended consequences. I try to tell people that I'm not defending Alex Jones. I'm defending the principle of freedom of speech. People who are convicted of killers and who are on death row, they still get their freedom of speech. You're allowed to print articles, and they're allowed to have. You know what I mean? They're still allowed.
Well, he's allowed to still. I mean, he hasn't been
Right.
silenced. He has his website,
but
he can put his show out on his
Correct.
website. He can host it from his website, and it can all be fine. But these major media companies now, they just decided we've had enough. We don't want this on. And here's the thing: like, I don't know what he said that there was a straw that broke the camel's back. It seemed like it's not a recent statement that
well,
he
let's
said.
just go to the court transcripts and we'll figure out. Oh, there wasn't a
no
court.
court.
Oh, there's no hearing
due
or nothing.
process.
There wasn't a judicial hearing. There was no. Come on, they do billionaire in the middle of the night on a whim. Is that what happened? Yes.
Do you think
the government tells Facebook what to do a lot of times, right?
Mhm.
And so they bow to the government all the time because they don't want to be regulated.
Right.
This is Matt Taibbi wrote an article on the August 2nd about this, and there's been a lot of people being deplatformed from Facebook that you don't know about.
Like who?
Like this isn't like okay. So here's what they shut down lots of other sites at the behest of the government in Israel, like the Atlantic Council. So pages like Black Elevation, they got shut down. A page called Mindful Being, they got shut down. Facebook also wiped out No Unite the Right To, which is a page appearing to advertise a counter rally on the upcoming anniversary of the violence in Charlottesville. So they shut that down too. Matt Taibbi, let me just give you a quick quote from his article. He says Facebook was helped in its efforts to wipe out these dangerous memes by the Atlantic Council, on whose board you'll find confidence-inspiring names like Henry Kissinger, CIA Chief Michael Hayden, former acting CIA head Michael Morrell, and former Bush-era Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff. These people now have their hands on what is essentially a direct lever over nationwide news distribution. It's hard to overstate the potential mischief that lurks behind this union of internet platforms and would-be government censors.
Ooh.
Can I just read you one more paragraph? Because this is exactly what we're talking about. He says, it is already a scandal that these de facto private media regulators have secret algorithmic processes that push down some news organizations in favor of others, which they do. Witness the complaints by outlets like Alternet, Truthdig, and others that big platforms have been de-emphasizing alternative sites in the name of combating fake news. But this week's revelation is worse. When Facebook works with the government and wannabe Star Chamber organizations like the Atlantic Council to delete sites on national security grounds using secret methodology, it opens the door to nightmare possibilities that you'd only find in dystopian novels.
So let me tell you about Operation 666. Yes! Operation 666! Operation Freedom to destroy you forever! I'm just a donkey. On the 6th of August, we banned InfoWars from 27 platforms. And now, on September 6th, we banned you from Twitter. And on October 6th, we will destroy your president and set fire to every major U.S. city and have our communist forces launch their attack while Silicon Valley sits in their bunkers in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in New Zealand. Operation 666. The number of the beast. Hell and fire reigning free. Soon the West will fall, all ready to invade. The China system will expand. The third world will collapse into Europe and America. And our domination will be complete. We will sit back in New Zealand and in Kauai, Hawaii, and watch you burn!